We're still experimenting to figure out how can we both speed up the work that we do, but also ensure that we get consistency. I think we've found success in smaller, more targeted areas when we've asked AI to do very narrow and specific things for us. We've seen great success. So one good example is whenever we have images in our documentation as a best practice for accessibility, we want to make sure that there's alt text so that a
Mhm.
screen reader can make sense of the image. If we ask AI for help drafting things like alt text, we actually find that it does a fantastic job. But we're looking at very narrow, very specific. We have a lot of sort of guidance in our prompt about length and um, sentence length, things like that. And it does a really great job. That's very different, though, that you're talking about maybe two sentences, 100 words. That's very different than asking AI to draft an entire topic or an entire article for you. Then things do get trickier when it comes to consistency and style.
Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Our guest today is Josh Bean, Principal Technical Writer at Amazon. Hi, Josh. How are you doing today?
Hi, Gallery. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. And Josh, we are very excited to know about your journey. So please help us understand a little bit more about yourself, how you got into this professional career, and what motivates you to write more.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, my name is Josh. I'm principal technical writer at Amazon. I've been a technical writer for about 11 and a half years. Prior to technical writing, I was in the IT industry, but doing other roles, doing IT support and system administration. And I was looking for a change and had always been told that I was a talented writer. And so I looked for a way to combine my interest in technology with the writing field. Found my way into technical writing, and it's been a great fit. I've really loved this role and this career. Um,
Great. So 11 and a half years. Talk me through about what changes have you seen throughout this big journey?
yeah, great question. So, yeah, I started 11 and a half years ago at Amazon. That was my first technical writing job. So, I've actually only done technical writing at this one company. So my experience, even though it's long, is in a way limited by I haven't had an experience at different software companies.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I've seen a lot change. The tooling that we use, the way we, source control, and the way we manage our writing and publish things has shifted. I've been fortunate to work in a couple of different groups inside Amazon, so I've watched or I've seen how different parts of the company do things completely differently, actually, when it comes to technical writing processes and tools. So that's been kind of a fun experience to get to see different ways of working in this same role.
Great. Now, how do you address the challenges like maintaining accuracy and at the same time the consistency while integrating AI into technical writing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I feel like I could answer that even before we introduce AI. I think maintaining accuracy and consistency, especially across, right now I'm working in AWS, which is a very large area, just a very large set of products. We have a humongous team of technical writers, and so just a massive amount of content. So maintaining accuracy and consistency is a challenge in and of itself. And then when you introduce AI into the mix, I think the AI technology can both be a helper in that area and can help us, if we use it well, can help us
Mhm.
to maintain consistency. Um, but also it can introduce challenges, right? You have to make sure that your technical writing remains accurate, which at least early on was one of the challenges of AI. I think it's getting better, but there still is that concern that you have to verify the accuracy of things that are produced by AI. I think the way that we've historically done that has been, or I guess the way we've historically maintained accuracy, again, sort of stepping aside from AI for just a moment, has been really through manual effort. We've made sure that the technical writers are kind of their own testers in a sense, test their own documentation, are familiar with the software, have used it themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
have validated personally that what they've written is actually technically accurate. Sometimes we do need to rely on partners, subject matter experts, engineers, others, when it's something that we can't verify ourselves. And then I would say that general principle holds true even when you've introduced AI into the mix, right? You can look at something that AI has drafted for you and validate the accuracy. Make sure by using the product, make sure that what you're getting is technically accurate.
That's true. I mean, we do have a number of questions raised with our platform saying, how do you make sure that the AI produced content's got the same style and tone as that suits your organization? So how do you handle that, Josh?
Yeah, great question. I think we have been experimenting inside our organization with how we can use different prompting techniques to get consistency when it comes to tone and style and voice and things like that. It is a little bit of a challenge with AI. That's one of the creativity, for lack of a better term. The creativity of AI is one of its features. And so we don't necessarily want that level of spontaneity or creativity in technical communication. We want things that adhere to a very consistent style and tone. And so sometimes through prompting techniques, we're able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it's a little bit of a work in progress. We're still experimenting to figure out how can we both speed up the work that we do, but also ensure that we get consistency. I think we've found success in smaller, more targeted areas when we've asked AI to do very narrow and specific things for us. We've seen great success. So one good example is whenever we have images in our documentation as a best practice for accessibility, we want to make sure that there's alt text so that a
Mm-hmm.
screen reader can make sense of the image. If we ask AI for help drafting things like alt text, we actually find that it does a fantastic job, but we're looking at very narrow, very specific. We have a lot of sort of guidance in our prompt about length and sentence length, things like that. And it does a really great job. That's very different, though, that you're talking about maybe two sentences, 100 words. That's very different than asking AI to draft an entire topic or an entire article for you. Then things do get trickier when it comes to consistency and style. And so,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a work in progress. We've seen some
Mm-hmm.
areas where we've been successful and others where we're still honing.
Right. So I think just following on to the previous conversation we had, like you have ample amount of experience in technical writing. Now, what future developments in AI do you anticipate that will help technical writers like yours even better?
I think one of the areas that I feel like isn't talked about enough when it comes to AI helping technical writers, I think we focus a lot on the writing itself, how, we think a lot or focus a lot on how will AI help with the generation of content or the writing. And like I said, I think it's kind of an ongoing experiment to see where it will be useful in that area. But in my experience, a large part of technical writing is actually research and learning, coming up to speed with a particular technology, learning how a product works and understanding it deeply enough that you can write about it competently. I have found that AI can be a huge benefit in that area. If I'm trying to learn a new technology or learn a new concept that's new to me, I have found that I can ask an AI tool to summarize something for me, to retell it at a different level. I can feed a bunch of information and have it summarize and regurgitate without having to read all of those documents myself. So I think
Yeah.
it's a tremendous help in the learning and research phase of technical writing. And then, like I said, in the actual content generation, the actual writing part of technical writing, I do think there's a lot of potential for it to be helpful. But we're still sort of working out how do we ensure accuracy, consistency, those kinds of things.
True, true, very true. Now, in terms of ethical considerations, what do you think should technical writers keep in mind, particularly when using AI tools to create and generate content?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of different facets to that. I think, the easy answer or sort of one answer that comes to mind right away is to just be careful of which tools you're using, right? Know the tool and who developed it and how it was developed. The more you know about that, the better choices you can make about which tool you're using. Obviously, if you're using something in the context of work, depending on your employer and your workplace situation, there may be rules for what AI tools you're allowed to use and how. We actually make products in AWS that allow companies to provide access to large language models and AI tools in such a way that the companies or the users' information, what they feed to the LLM, proprietary information that might be used, is all um, kept within the company's boundaries. And so
Nice.
your employer may have rules around that. So there's lots of
Yeah,
different ways to sort of approach that, but those are some of my initial thoughts.
great. Now, which technical writing task or part of the process has AI transformed for your team in particular?
Like I said, we've seen success with specific areas. I mentioned alt text. We've seen
Yeah.
that be a tremendous boost rather than having a bunch of technical writers manually go in and add alt text where it's missing. We've been able
Mm-hmm.
to automate that. So that's been a huge success. In my conversations with other writers, I think, like I said earlier, one of the biggest areas is just the learning and the research. It really speeds up our ability to learn an area
Yeah.
and gain expertise and technical depth. And then I've have talked to some writers who really have seen a benefit in helping them actually produce first drafts or produce outlines, things like that. So we're beginning to see some successes even in the writing side.
Great. So that means you get more time to maybe produce more contents in a short span of time as well, right?
That's right, exactly. I think ideally it can speed up the time that you spend on a particular task, a project that would have taken, this is just kind of uh, for example, but a project that would have taken a week can maybe you can get a first draft out in a couple of days. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I think there's a lot of potential to allow us to work faster, and that allows us to also focus on there's always other parts of technical writing that you feel like you don't have as much time for. So
Yeah,
producing content is of course a big part of it, but there's also maintaining existing content, making sure things are still accurate and up to date.
true.
I often in our context, those are the kinds of tasks that tend to fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
And we can free up the time of a technical writer, they'll be better able to do some of those other tasks.
Yeah, very well said, Josh. Absolutely agree with what you spoke there. Yeah. Now, moving on to rapid fire round questions. Any documentation related resources that you can recommend today to our audiences?
I thought a little bit about this. This is an old resource, but it's one I've been coming back to lately. It's both the main resource is a book. An author named Mark Baker wrote a book called Every Page is Page One with just some sort of philosophical approaches to technical writing and topic-based writing. I think it's about a 10-year-old book at this point, maybe a little more, 10, 12 years old, but I have continued to find it very useful, just the philosophies that are outlined.
Mhm.
Mark Baker, that author, also used to have a blog. He has since retired and stopped maintaining it, but I'll find myself going back to those resources as well. So that's one that I've come back to recently in some of the work that I've done here in AWS. Yeah, that's been a useful resource for me.
So it's every page is page one, is it? Is that the book
Correct.
name?
Right.
All right,
Yep. Yep.
great.
Yeah.
Now, when we say documentation, what is that one word that comes to your mind?
Oh, boy, I brevity is actually the first word that comes to mind. Keeping things succinct. I think I have learned over the decade or more of my career that I'm always tempted to say more. I always feel like, oh, there's more I could tell you. There's more I could write. There's more I know. But I think good technical writing is brief. It knows how to um, walk the line between saying just enough and
Mm.
stopping there. And so, yeah, I think that's it's something I'm constantly working on is how can I be as succinct as possible?
All right. Nice. My last question to you is, what is the one piece of documentation related advice you would give to a 20-year-old self?
The piece of advice I would give to myself is don't be afraid to try something new. That's a little bit personal, I suppose. That kind of reveals a little bit of my personality. I tend to want to play it safe and not go too far in something until I know I have competence in it. But I think I have found a lot of enjoyment, honestly, in trying something that might feel at first uncomfortable or new, a different, you know, trying to document a new technology, switching to a different team, even changing roles. I for a brief part of my career, I was I switched from being just a technical writer to a technical writing manager. I think I would tell myself, lean into those opportunities to try something new. Like nothing is forever, and you can always, shift again, but be willing to step into the uncomfortable.
Great. Grab the opportunity when it comes.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Nice. Now, Josh, I try to maximize your experience with some of my questions, but if there's anything else you would like to add and yeah, help to our audience today, that would be lovely.
Yeah, I think we've talked a fair bit about AI. I think I don't know where everyone in your audience is at in their own
Mhm.
understanding or use of the AI tools that are out there. I'm sure it varies. But I guess I would just offer that I think there's a lot that's still unknown. We don't know exactly how this technology will be useful. We're still learning, we're still figuring things out. But I would encourage people to try it. If you haven't, if you've been um, hesitant or reticent to give it a try. Just even things that aren't work related, like areas that you want to learn, things you want to experiment with. Don't be afraid to try it out and begin to develop some comfort with it. And I think that will help. Uh, I think that will help calm some of the hesitation and
Mhm.
also lead to brainstorm ideas of ways that it can be useful in your work life.
All right. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Josh. That's been amazing last 20 minutes, I should say. And yeah, all the very best for your future projects. And let's see if we can connect again at some point later.
That's great. I would love that. Thanks, Gowrie. Appreciate the time.
Have a lovely day. Bye bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.